What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? October 29th, and just a couple days ago, I was able to sit down with none other than Jason Quitt to get him on camera to share a little bit about his story with you guys, but more so his ideas and a lot of current events that are going on right now. And I first became acquainted with Quitt earlier this summer at James Gilliland's E-City Ranch. We were both invited there to speak at his conference, so when I was there, I was able to sit through his lecture, I was able to hear his story, and then actually be able to get to know him a little better, and I became to find out that he's a really good dude, and he's a very smart guy. So when he asked me that he wanted to basically use my channel as an avenue to get a lot of his thoughts out there, I said, heck yeah, man, mi casa su casa, you know? So I was very excited to sit down with him. You'll hear a little bit about his story. You know, if you're not familiar with who he is basically a multi-dimensional time traveler. You know, that's kind of the term he's coined for himself, because at a very early age, he was able to astral project, and he was able to basically experience many different realms of consciousness and actually almost bend the laws of space-time through simply the use of his mind. You know, it's something that all of us could do, but he's very good at doing it, and he helps people to do it themselves. So we discuss a little bit about that, you know, his story, but we also get into a lot of talk about current events and how things like the secret space program, or overall disclosure of things like the secret space program or the UFO issue, is going on, but it's leaving out a crucial component, and that is that multidimensional consciousness component. So it's a great talk. You know, I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll be seeing you guys again soon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's October 27th. Jordan Sathier here from my Destroying the Illusion channel, and I'm honored to talk to none other than Jason Quitt today. How you doing, Jason?
Doing fantastic, Jordan.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. And I'm just going to read off a few sentences about Jason, who he is, and what he's done before we get started. We'll talk a little bit about his story, and then he's got some good thoughts to share on a lot of current events for you guys today. So Jason would be considered a lifelong experiencer who has interacted closely with the metaphysical multidimensional realms. He's had many of out-of-body experiences and has encountered ghosts, ETs, and other dimensional beings, which have assisted him in being taken on out-of-body time travel journeys and in remembering many of his past lives. From his out-of-body experiences, Jason has received information on numerous energetic systems of healing and spiritual development, which he has published in his books Egyptian Postures of Power and the Yosef Codes. In 2015, Jason started to work on publishing his personal story with the late Bob Mitchell, and his book Forbidden Knowledge, Revelations of a Multidimensional Time Traveler was released in March 2016. And since then, Jason's been on plenty of documentaries and shows, and he filmed with the Gaia Network, much like I have. So Jason's been doing a lot of good work, just getting his own personal stories out there. And that's what we're really going to talk about today, is his own experiences, his own perspective that he's gathered from that. And we're hoping to add to a lot of conversations that are going on about different current events. So Jason, you know, again, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on, buddy. So tell us a little bit about your childhood, how you came to be this multidimensional time traveler.
Well, first, I thought that everybody came to planet Earth and chose their parents, because that was my first memory. I came here through a portal. I got to watch my parents through a portal, almost like a movie screen, and then I'm here. So when I first started to talk, I would tell my parents, you know, aren't you happy that I chose you to be my parents? Because I actually remembered coming and choosing them. And I thought that was completely normal. That's what life is. When I was younger, I would say I was very open to the other worlds, which means at nighttime, I would be visited by this shadow. And just like most kids, I was afraid of what was in my closet. So at nighttime, I wouldn't go to sleep unless my closet door was completely closed.
Mm.
But in the middle of the night, obviously, this door opens. And there is standing a shadow in front of me, and the shadow would come and take me out of my body, and it would show me things. It would take me into the past. It would take me into the future. It'd show me different past lives. And then I started to have past life rememberings at a very early age, like around 3, 4, 5 years old. These memories of lifetimes would come back to me, and none of them were nice. It was all very, very traumatic, very terrible things that I witnessed as a child. And it sort of got me ready for what was going to come later in life. And what happened later in life was something called sleep paralysis. And about, I think they say 30 million Americans a year experience some form of sleep paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that I would go to sleep at night and I would wake up, but my body would be completely paralyzed and asleep. And I'm just basically screaming to wake up inside my head. It's almost like you're in a coma. You can't move. No one can hear you. And this would happen to me almost every single night.
Wow.
And I started to get very sensitized to that world of being paralyzed. And I could feel something starting to walk into my room. And as it would enter my room, I would be paralyzed. And I could feel this thing, whatever it was, walking around my room. So I got extremely fearful, and it made me want to wake up more. So you start screaming more inside your head, trying to shake yourself awake. And one night I shook so hard because I just couldn't take it anymore. I actually popped myself out of my body, and I had my first outer body experience, conscious outer body experience, in my early 20s. And as I came out of the body, I can see myself laying on the bed. And at the foot of my bed was this very tall shadow. It looked kind of like a Grim Reaper, like wearing a hood. It was dark. And I actually thought I killed myself. I'm like, okay, it's over. It's done. I'm out of my body. I'm dead. And this thing is going to take me away now. And I got so scared that I actually got sucked right back into my body and woke up. And that was a very defining moment in my life, because it's not a dream. This type of experience is actually more real than anything I could describe in this world. It's so real that you're just like, okay, shit, I'm dead. Like that's the thoughts
It's
that
like
go
you weren't
through your
even
mind.
questioning in your own head. You're just
Yeah, you're just
automatically
like,
assumed because it almost was real.
yes. And since that event occurred in my life, it's opened a doorway for me. And that doorway is, I could put myself into a paralysis state when I go to sleep, which means keeping my body sleeping and keeping my mind active. And once I feel the body goes to sleep, then I could shift my consciousness outside of my body and travel. So that's what that event in my life did to me. And since I started to leave and play into this world, we can call it the astral world or a dimensional world, fourth dimensional world. Once I started to play in this arena, my life changed. I started to get visitations from other types of beings, all different types of beings. And some of them would take me at night and basically take me to other timelines of the earth. And they would just drop me off in different places. And I would experience what's going on. And then they would take me back to my body and wake up. And it was an amazing thing, because I was conscious of this. Most people that leave their body, they don't really retain so much memories of these occurrences. But for me, for some reason, I retained these memories, and I was very active in the process of doing it. So for example, let's say I leave my body, I shift myself out. Now I'm in my room, I'm floating in my room, and then suddenly a portal will open. And a portal is like, it looks like a black hole. It just kind of comes out of nowhere, just hovering in your room. It's about 2 to 3 feet big. It's not very big. And you get kind of pulled like a magnetic pull, and you go through this portal and you come out the other side. Mostly it's in space. You pop out in outer space, and then you see a planet. You go down into the planet. And then Jason wakes up in another body. All right. So it's like you're having a parallel experience somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So, you could wake up as a child, you can wake up as an older person, you could even wake up as an alien being. All
And
right. So,
and you began experiencing all these different possibilities from, the age of early 20s kind of till now, and almost learning about this whole new realm and all of these possibilities that tie directly into this one.
that's right. So I was just basically thrown into a new world, and the beings that would come to me, they would never explain anything to me,
Hmm.
ever. It would be very, very short words or sentences. It was never an explanation. No being would come to me and say, "Hi, I'm this from this planet, and this is why I'm here." That's never, ever happened. You know,
Interesting.
it's just been being taken, shown the experience, and sometimes I've come in contact with things that are not very friendly. So I would say I spent about 5+ years basically battling for my life because, I'd wake up and there would be like an entity trying to pull me out of my body or push me out or trying to take over my body. And you're basically fighting with beings at night so that you can basically stay conscious and stay in your body. So it's not fun. Um, but you learn over time, not only to fight back, but to have some type of spiritual strength so that these things cannot affect you or hurt you. And the reason they can affect you and hurt you is just because you're in a weakened state energetically and spiritually in this physical world. So by entering into this multidimensional place, you really have to start changing everything, how you think, how you eat, how you feel, because it's completely different.
Hmm.
No belief systems that we have here kind of transfer over there. You have to kind of forget everything and start again.
Totally. And I was, I come from a much different upbringing in that I'm not one to remember my astral experiences very easily, nor my dreams, or I've only had a handful of lucid experiences in my life. So when I had met you earlier this year at James Gilliland's, East City Ranch, I was super intrigued by your story because you had such a, it's as almost if we came to nearly the same spot, but from two completely polar opposite upbringings or experiences. So, yeah, I could tell that you had a lot of spiritual growth, and these realms. A lot of people are trying to get into them and delve in them, but they don't really gather fully, in my opinion, how deep it really goes or what they're playing around with.
Yeah,
And it's
I
not.
have to put out a warning to people
Hmm.
because spiritually awakening is not a fun process.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. You have to face basically your shadows. You have to face things you've been carrying for multiple lives, things you don't even know about.
Hmm.
And once you make that decision that you're going to go down this road, um, you either have to face your stuff or it's going to destroy you. You can't have it either way.
Absolutely.
So just another warning to people that because I get this question all the time, Jay, teach me how to leave your body. And I say to them, it'll only happen when you're ready, and there's nothing that I can do to help you with that, because it has to do with the things you carry in this world, your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, your wounds. When you take those energies out of your body into this realm, they become 1,000 times more potent,
Hmm.
and it will attract certain energies to you which you don't want. So sometimes not leaving your body is the best thing, because if you do, it's going to hurt you. You're going to bring things back to you. And this is where it starts to get into possessions and things, just nasty things that you just don't want to deal with.
Yeah, yeah, completely. And a lot of those things are real. Granted, there's negative entities out there, but there's very much positive ones that are trying to help us along in different ways that don't bridge the infringing gap.
Exactly. They will give you what they believe you could handle at that time,
Hmm.
and they won't take it further. So you have this amazing, I'll call it eternal self, higher self, guiding you, watching you and protecting you, but it's only giving you little tastes to see how far they could bring you along. So
You have to choose it. It's all about the choosing.
that's right.
Yeah. And then once you kind of came to terms and began learning about these realms and your shadows, you started coming out with your books and putting your work and your word out there more so. What's kind of modern Jason doing? What are you doing now? And what are you trying to convey to people the most?
The most is I want people to kind of expand their awareness of who they are
Mm-hmm.
and to get their power back, because we're all multidimensional beings. It's not just some masters that have been meditating in a mountain. We're all multidimensional beings connected to source, and we all have sovereignty over our own energy. The problem is that in this type of world, we're basically wrapped in all these different nets. That's the only way I could describe it. We're wrapped in nets of consciousness
Mm-hmm.
that keep us down a specific road. And it's only until someone awakens that says, I feel that there's something wrong in this world. There's something not right. That's almost like the first awakening process, is realizing things aren't the way they should be.
Just moving past that denial stage into simple acceptance, and then there's the road from there.
Right. So what I like to teach people is just kind of educate them on who they are, what is possible being a multidimensional being, and how they can take their power back so that they could basically be aware of their energy, be aware of what's pulling them or what's manipulating them.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are things outside of us that can play with us and we're not even aware of it.
Mm-hmm. And there's no doubt through your come up, there has been a lot of struggles and challenges and people in situations trying to take you down. Would you like to expound on any of that as much as you're comfortable?
I won't get into the astral assassins part of the story if that's what you're asking, but I will talk about something else, which is the secret space program.
Mm-hmm.
When the secret space program started to come out, it was almost like this freshness. It's this information that's so exciting that, oh my God, we got to get into this secret space program stuff.
Another rabbit hole that goes even deeper that people realize. I know that's kind of how I felt 2-3 years ago.
It's so exciting, right? Exactly. And so I finished writing the book Forbidden Knowledge and put it out there, and it became a huge success. It went worldwide, and it's still doing very well. So I was on like a high, like a writer's high, like, okay, I just did this book. It's doing fantastic. What's the next thing? And I'm working with Bob Mitchell, who's a famous writer as well. And I'm not going to say any names, and I don't want you to say any names.
Nope, no names.
Okay. But we got in touch with a supposed secret space program person who had a ton of information. And I mean like a ton of information.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he gave us everything. We put a book together for this person, and it turned out that it was all bunk. It was all just this person pulling sources from all these other places, and nothing he said to us was true.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, the book, was taken down, and it caused about a full year of hell in my life. This person tried to ruin me because we figured out he was fake, and he would do anything in his power to deny that he was fake.
That says quite a bit about, your ego being able to say, oh, I'm not going to go down this path, even though it might have led to whatever type of gain, notoriety, or financial. You said, nope, I can't mess with that because that's not, figured out it's not true. So you dealt with that. And I'm sure that put somewhat of a sour taste in your mouth around the whole subject.
Yeah. So to deal with secret space program information
Mm-hmm.
was like a nail in my head. So when people would come up to me and say, oh, tell me about the secret space program, or what do you think of this or this person or that person? I'm just like, don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, they're wanting some confirmation, and you're like, I'm not going to give you that. I'm sorry.
I'm not touching anything secret space program anymore. I'm just moving on and talking about my personal experiences. And then a couple of days ago, someone brought to my attention a new supposed whistleblower that Dr. Michael Salla was interviewing. And I had some time, so I pulled up the video and I started to watch this gentleman. His name is Michael Gerloff, I believe his name.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm watching it and I'm listening to his story, and it just blew me away because his story mirrored my story growing up. He talked about the shadow taking him out of his body. He talked about the hooded figure that had this dog face. He talked about all these different journeys of leaving his body or having some type of psychic information coming to him. And I got that, so he was a true experiencer because I went down that same road as this person.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is that he was pulled into the military where I wasn't. In fact, even if I tried to get into the military, they'd probably kick me out anyways. I'm not a very good soldier or taking orders.
Mm-hmm.
But so I had no experience with any type of government, military, whatever. I just kind of grew up with my abilities. But this gentleman was taken into the military, and he has a very, very interesting story. So I recommend everybody watching Dr. Michael Salla's interview about him. And then he says he's going into the military, and they ask him if he wants to be in, I think it was the Space Navy. And he says yes. So they take him and he starts signing all these papers that he's going to go on this new mission. And then as they're driving him to another location, he loses consciousness in the car. And he says he feels himself losing consciousness, and he feels himself getting sucked out of the back of the car through a tunnel. That's what he says. He uses those words. He gets sucked out through a tunnel behind him. And the next thing he knows is that he's sitting in a room surrounded by the same people. And it's only maybe a couple minutes later or an hour later, like no time has really passed. And they say, thank you for everything. Everything's all right. And go back to your basic training. So then he goes on through the military like nothing has ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
But then through his career, he starts having, strange flashbacks. And then, this relates to the 20 and back program, which most secret space program people talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there listening to this gentleman who is absolutely genuine, having his genuine experiences and sharing them with everybody. And when you leave your body, that's what you feel. It's almost like you start losing consciousness and you get pulled through a tunnel. Most of the time it's through your back. So what this gentleman is describing is an outer body experience. He's being pulled out of his body into another dimension. Now, I'm just going to go over 3 points. Okay, the 3 points are, sorry about that. 1, we all have to know we're multidimensional beings. That's the first thing we need to know. The second thing we need to know is there's parallel worlds in a multiverse, all right, other dimensions. And the third thing we need to know is that time and space does not exist outside of our third dimensional reality. So our consciousness is not bound by time or space. So when I'm hearing about these secret space program people, they're saying that they're physically taken, that their physical body is taken somewhere like a space command, or they go to Mars or on the moon, and they physically do their mission, and then they come back, they get age regressed, and nothing's changed. It's like the next breath they're here. But what they're describing is what I've been going through my whole life. And I know that when you leave your body, your body just loses consciousness. You just go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you leave your body, you have stepped out of time and you have stepped out of space. And then your consciousness could actually travel through these different dimensional portals, and you could wake up in a parallel world or existence or timeline. And most of the time when you wake up, you're you, because there's infinite yous out there.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, they can leave their body, they can go out in time and space, they could wake up as themselves as a soldier on Mars, spend 20 years there, come back, and because there's no breaks in time for consciousness, they wake up the next morning, they forget everything, just like a dream.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, certain individuals, they start to get bleed through of these dimensional selves, and they start remembering their missions. They start remembering what they were doing. And then they said, oh my God, I was in the military and they told me about this and I blacked out. And now I'm having memories of going off world.
Yeah, and this is a very important point to bring into the whole discussion, in that modern science, and even many, not in the modern science realm, studying alternative sciences, if you want to call it that, they still don't understand what space and time are. And it's this huge question that needs to be pondered a little deeper. Time's not a linear thing. And much like you were saying, we're not going to get into the whole semantics of it all, but time is just not what we think. That's basically what it is. So it sounds to be such that these people, much like you said, in this timeline, this body doesn't, a split second doesn't pass, but they can go into a different realm and experience what is literally real. It's not some make believe, not a dream. It is a real thing. They're in a real body and they do work in these real programs. And then they come back here and boom, and this kind of answers a lot of stuff that's been in my head about the 20 and back thing and how it's all plausible and possible.
Yes. And what I've learned about the whole ET phenomenon is that it's a extra dimensional phenomenon. Mm-hmm. Yes, we'll have physical entities here from other worlds or dimensions, but mostly what we're dealing with is a dimensional issue. Yeah. Because when I leave my body, okay, so I can feel something walking into the room, right? Mm-hmm. But I can't see it with my eyes. There's nothing there. If I pop out of my body, they're right there, clear as day. So I've seen those entities that people describe as reptilian or greys or mantids or Nordics or hooded beings, little Yoda beings, water beings, you name it, right? Mm-hmm. I only experience them once I leave the third dimension. And I know that they can manifest themselves in a 3D reality here, but they can't hold that form for long. So they'll pop in and out of reality.
Very low vibration. It's difficult for a lot of these beings to do that.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
That's why I never liked calling them UFOs. I'm like, they're not technically flying. They're kind of phasing in and out.
Yeah.
Nomenclature.
Exactly. So what I started to think about through my own experiences is that when I started to go on these time travel missions, I was actually pulled out of my body without permission, I'll say. Maybe on some level there was permission, but I was in my body sleeping, having a great dream, and then something reaches into your body and yanks you out and then takes you. So it's like an abduction, an astral abduction.
And it sounds to me like you did a lot of the exact same stuff that these secret space program experiencers have said. Just like you mentioned, you didn't do it from a military background. You had, whatever races, nefariously or not, you kind of said that who knows what kind of authorization was given by you, but they just yanked you out of your body and plopped you into these timelines, realms, worlds, and you were able to, it's kind of like they were being a very bad parent in a way. Just dropped you off and said, hey, learn. And
tough love.
Tough love, exactly.
And no, it's absolutely true. And mm-hmm. And the thing is that like I have a journal and I've written like all these memories down and I plop them mostly into the book Forbidden Knowledge. But I'm listening to all these stories and, I've been to Mars, for example, not in the physical body, obviously, but I'm telling you, it's very hard to see on Mars. You have to have really good goggles, by the way.
So this brings me into a whole nother discussion now.
Yeah.
Bringing in some of the ideas of current events, could it be such that a lot of these secret space program experiencers, for whatever reason, they're getting these memories come back to them based on their own accord, maybe based on some influence helping these memories come back to them? Is all of this occurring to speed up the disclosure process in this very moment on this timeline so we don't experience whatever bad realms and worlds that even you might have seen in the future?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above, actually.
Mm,
But, it just keeps making me think. And like I said, these beings taken me. They took me,
mm-hmm.
And it was dimensional. And when I hear Michael's story, when he loses consciousness and he was taken through a tunnel, it's the only thing I'm thinking of now is when he is signing his contracts with the military. And he says there's like a whole desk with piles of paper that he has to sign to do this. And once he finished signing, that's when he was taken. Is the military, is Space Command in contact with these such entities, these dimensionals?
Mm-hmm.
Is there agreements with them? And they're waiting for that signature. And once he signed for it and it was agreed upon that that is his free will of doing this service, is he now taken from his body to do these missions? That's what I'm thinking. I'm not saying that that's all the cases,
Mm-hmm.
because there is a secret space program out there. I have no doubt in my mind. A lot of the craft, the metallic ships that we see now, I believe that they are completely secret space program,
Man-made.
man-made technologies,
You see
and
something weird in the sky, you have to ask, ours or theirs?
they're piloted,
Mm-hmm.
and they have orders. So, there is a physical aspect to it. I'm just opening it up to this multidimensional aspect, but I want to break down to you what I think the hierarchy of the secret space program is. Okay, so you have two factions of the secret space program. You have the active secret space program individuals, and these are the peoples that started off in the late 50s. Okay, so they developed this breakaway civilization in the 1950s,
Mm-hmm.
and they completely broke away from the human population. They had advanced technology where, space flight, interdimensional communication, free energy, alliances with other beings, not just physical beings, but dimensional beings, other worlds. This was all the norm for these individuals. And it would have been such a secretive group that you would have to be born into this active group. They would never farm anybody from the normal population into this group unless that person was of interest. They had certain abilities. Now, what I've heard, and I can't reveal who I've heard this from, but they said that any person that's part of this active group, if they ever came forward or went into the public and started to tell their story, they would be terminated almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
They had trackers in them. There's technology built into their bodies where they can be tracked, and by a push of a button, they can be terminated.
And at these levels of the unacknowledged programs, that makes absolute sense for the operational security of it. If you had a, defector or something, you would want all constituents in place to
Yeah, you're not bumping into them at Whole Foods.
Cover. Exactly.
Right. So the next group would be the passive group. And these are the individuals or corporations that help sustain the control of the active group. So these would be like corporations like Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works, and DARPA, and all these other corporations that are set up around the planet, and the shadow governments, and even governments themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They take their orders from the active secret space program. So there's these levels to it. So this is why we can't really touch it and get into it. And that's why there's this active agenda where we are not allowed to talk about UFOs. We're not allowed to talk about entities or spiritual experiences. Basically, anything paranormal, we're not supposed to really spread that. So it's really hunkered down in mainstream. There's a standing order, just like John D'Souza says, there's a standing order from these higher elite powers in control that say, we cannot discuss this.
Mm-hmm. And anytime, and it seems, with the way these secret space program testimonies are coming out, these experiencers, anytime someone does come forward discussing the black projects with the idea of a higher consciousness with it, those are the people that are ridiculed or they try to character assassinate in some way. We have some programs or factions or groups at play that are trying to bring out these black projects and these technologies, although they're completely, much like you said, not discussing the multidimensional aspect of it.
Right. They want us to believe that it's a physical alien riding around in a craft.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they crash all the time because they're not really advanced. So,
or all aliens are a threat, or all aliens are good. All ETs are either bad or good. So we need to beware from either a false flag alien threat because they're all good, or we need to, put a bunch of money into research of black projects because all ETs are bad or something like that. We have to defend against them. So it seems to be multiple half-truth narratives coming to play at us.
They just want us to believe that we had the idea to weaponize space.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they play that, is there's a threat. But it's the, and even right now with the disclosure or so-called disclosure with Tom DeLonge,
mm-hmm.
like I'm sure you have some good opinions about him. But if you actually go and read his website, which I'm going to go to now so I can actually read it online here, he has 3 divisions, which is science, aerospace, and entertainment, right? And in his science division, which is the most important one, the first header in his science briefing is Human Ultra Experience Database. He wants to set up and develop a worldwide digital databases, cataloging different types of supernormal experiences. All right. That's probably the scariest thing that I've ever heard. Mm-hmm. That's scary. It's like, this is literally the plot to X-Men, which is get all the experiencers information and create a database of them. It's just like, let's make a database of all the mutants, so in the future we can gather them up.
Yeah. And when you look at the people who is behind this effort, his To the Stars initiative effort to quote disclose, I'm seeing a lot of 3 letters, a lot of CIAs, a lot of Lockheeds, a lot of, people saying things where there's a lot of questions they're not answering.
Right. And I think his next step is to release high definition videos shot by the military of UFOs in flight.
And this, I do want to make a point though, this also begs the question about Tom DeLonge. We don't know what his intentions are. We don't know where his perspectives lie as well. He could very well be well-meaning, but of course the road to hell is paved with good intentions oftentimes. So.
Oh, yes. I absolutely believe that he believes he's doing the most beautiful thing for us. Mm-hmm. I think his intentions are absolutely pure. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking about this last night, and, me and you are having a conversation, we're just sharing ideas. Mm-hmm. If he releases videos shot by the military of beautiful craft in the sky, and then he gets on CNN and he says, this is what a UFO looks like. What if those are just the military crafts they've been flying for years? Mm-hmm.
Could be some black triangles that they say are aliens or something.
Right. Then they're washing their hands. They're washing their hands because if it's them, they can get away with anything. Mm-hmm. They could start a war and they could say, oh, it's the aliens.
And not only are they washing their hands with that, but if Tom DeLonge were to get on mainstream network and they were to show some high def footage of a big disc or a triangle or something to that effect, people would be absolutely, biggest news story we wouldn't hear another thing about Trump and on CNN. That's surprising. It would be all about this UFO, disclosure occurring, and how many things could they then sweep under the bus, not only in the realm of, misinforming us about secret space program craft, but also all the other, abuse things and dark stuff we don't need to get into here, but they could easily wow us away from that.
Like, okay, so there's two things in intelligence. If intelligence is leaked to the public, let's say a whistleblower comes out and says, there's this technology available, or, there's UFOs and aliens out there.
Mm-hmm.
A whistleblower leaves, that means the information has been leaked. Now, what do they do when information is leaked? They either data flood, so they put out a ton of information so that you don't know what's true or not. So a whole bunch of disinformation. Or they take back and control the narrative of that information.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two options that intelligence have. And I think they're doing both. They're data flooding, putting out tons of stories, prompting up lots of people to tell stories that are disinformation. I had the chance of working with one, and that ruined my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have them coming out and trying to control the narrative. And I think we're starting to see that with these projects coming out, is they're controlling the narrative to allow, oh, we're going to give you this information and you should be grateful for that. So they put a net around a demographic and they say, okay, listen to me, not them. We're the people in charge.
Yeah, there's assets in place, whether the asset is consciously deceiving or they're just being a useful idiot. There's many assets in play, not only in the mainstream, but in alternative and, deep journalism that are activated.
Yeah. And you know how it works is that, let's say you have 10 operators. All right. What they do is they tell the 10 operators 10 different stories. All right. And they wait to see which story gets leaked to the public. Right. And then they'll know exactly which operator is the one who leaked it. So what we're saying is that all 10 people have disinformation. None of them have the truth.
Yeah.
But they can put it out there and then they can say, okay, this person ran this story to the public. Now we have something to use against him.
Totally.
So that's kind of how it works in intelligence. So, in the beginning of the book, the first statement I say is, I'm just some dude.
Yeah.
Not part of any military.
Aren't we all?
Not part of any of this. I'm just going to tell you what I've learned from my experiences. And getting back to the secret space program stuff, I have, we'll call it bleed through. I have bleed through of other lives. When I wake up here as Jason, I have to sometimes go back in my mind and say, this is my wife, this is my friends, this is where I live. Because you wake up with another history of other people and other things. Another thing is that, I've been taken and shown like Star Wars. I've seen crazy ships in the sky fighting each other. I've seen military taking craft. I've seen big, huge ships basically going over cities with weapons that we have never seen before. They're like these vortex weapons that basically turn things to dust.
You see some crazy shit, man.
I've seen some crazy, right. So I've witnessed all these things, and you've been there and you've witnessed this. I've seen the destruction of the earth. And then I come back here and I'm like, okay, that's just a parallel, or that's just another timeline that I've been living in or being exposed to, or there's bleed through. But I never thought that, okay, I'm part of a program, of a secret space program, even though I might be in one of these visions flying one of these ships above Earth. So the whole purpose of me coming to you and my whole purpose of telling my stories is I believe that what we're discussing in the secret space program, what we're discussing in UFO conspiracies or just conspiracies in general, I think it's still a very narrow view of what's possible in the human experience. And if we could just get into this mindset of the multidimensional world and who we really are, suddenly it opens up all these other doorways that explain what's happening.
Mm-hmm. And that's the crux of the issue is we're taking a belief system and trying to fit all of these testimonies into this belief system. And it's very tough to do that. That's what then a lot of the testimony gets out. We get wrong conclusions, wrong thought process of what's going. We have to take the information at hand and create a belief system out of it, not the other way around.
That's right.
So there's a huge relearning curve. I mean, I was just thinking about this the other day. Scrubbing one's consciousness is the toughest thing to do, but doing away with that old matrix and building back a new matrix allows us to reach that infinite potential, that infinite possibility that's often said. So
it's just our perception.
mm-hmm.
It's just our perception. So as we grow as people, the truths that we thought were true years ago, they've completely changed.
Yep.
So even myself, like I could be, writing these books or giving out this information. A year from now, I might get a new piece of the puzzle and go, okay, well, this builds upon this, but you have to look at it this way now. So everything is constantly flow. We're not really stuck in a box here. And you said it right there, is that what we're trying to do is we have a narrative to follow. And now we're trying to get all these pieces to say, this is the piece of the narrative over here. And this is the piece of the narrative over here. And we're trying to build this belief story and narrative of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have to become investigators and researchers. We have to let go of our beliefs and we have to let the evidence lead us to where it goes. We can't already have the conclusion and try to build the story from pieces of other people's experience. Like I have a piece, you have a piece, everybody has a piece of the puzzle. So what we have to do is we just have to share our experiences and see where it leads us.
Exactly.
For me, it's led me into this multidimensional world where we play all roles. Think about that for a second. We play all roles. So at a higher aspect of consciousness, we're out fighting wars. We're living in utopias.
Yeah.
We're doing everything at once. And to be an individual, to live out an existence, what we're doing is we're putting up a membrane that shields us from those other experiences so that we can explore these realms and experience it from new eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes there's people, I'll call them dimensionals, like myself and others, we have bleed through. It's
Mm-hmm.
not our reality to be stuck in this bubble. Our reality extends out into these other worlds, and we're okay with it, and we understand it. So I just wanted to share that with you and share that with the public, because there is more than one answer to these issues.
Totally. And it's very good. That's why I wanted you on here today. And I was honored that you actually contacted me to get on here and share these experiences, because all information, all experience is crucial. And it's all evidence. There's this huge question of, oh, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? Well, someone's testimony is evidence. And you
Yes.
can corroborate that testimony with other data points, and that's more evidence right there. I haven't seen any of the things you have, but through your body language, through getting to know you, through not hearing what anybody else has to say about you, but seeing you, getting to know the actual person and hearing your words, boom, that gives a whole lot of credence to that testimony and makes it evidence. So a lot of people who have testimony right now, yeah, they don't have physical evidence, but hearing what they have to say and comparing that with other people is what builds that rapport. And then hearing your story and comparing that to people who are coming out with their experiences now, boom, it's just linking up. It's all linking up, and it's only going to continue to do that.
Yeah, and there's people out there that are really trying to get the information out there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I have huge respect for Dr. Michael Salla, who's putting out these whistleblowers, getting the information out there. Yourself, like there's so many people right now just allowing the information to flow.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it could be overwhelming. It could
Absolutely.
it could be very tricky, because there's, for every truth out there, there's probably 1,000 untruths.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have to do is you have to try to navigate it with what makes sense to you right now. What allows you to go forward with information now? So you may take pieces from all these people, and that will help guide your perception.
Precisely.
And then soon it may change, but it doesn't matter because it's still leading you on a path to where you need to go.
Exactly. And the way I see it, we there's only one absolute truth. That's what is. You have to bend to its power, you live a lie. But the point in understanding in our human experience, we're never going to get that absolute truth. If we can, it's extremely difficult, and it usually only happens because you directly experience something. All we have is our relative truths, our own perspectives, and it goes through a lot of different lenses oftentimes when we see that absolute truth, and the goal should be to find that absolute truth, but it's a lot of change, it's a long learning experience, it's honing the discernment skills, it's doing all that to come as close as you can to that, but you might never even reach it.
That's right. And the best thing is that in this type of community, everybody is so gung-ho. They want answers. So they'll watch the video and they'll say, give me the answer. Give me the absolute truth answer right now.
And then they get into it and their ego catches them up and they just want that confirmation of what they already believe. There's no change. I don't see much flow like water, as Bruce Lee would say, with people's consciousness.
That's right. But an answer doesn't have to be absolute.
Mm-hmm.
A good answer will open up 20 new questions.
And a great answer could be a question in of itself.
That's right. And that's the purpose. I mean, if I give you the answer, there's no more mystery in life. We can just go to sleep and die.
Then you'd be like a bad parent. Here's the answer. Oh,
Here's the
I
answer.
don't tie my shoe because you did it for me.
Right. So the whole joy of life is inspiration. We have to be inspired by something. We have to have action in our lives to pull us on a path or a journey. And if we have the answers, we don't have struggle.
Yeah, no struggle without challenge.
And then we get stagnant and there's no purpose. So our purpose is just trying to find what inspires us, basically.
And you and I are simply inspired to find out what's really going on.
That's right. And by speaking and even speaking together and doing these shows, we have people from all over the world listening, and it gives them comfort and it gives them a sense of belonging that they're not the only ones that think like this.
Yes.
And then that it spreads like fire, and suddenly you have people that are conscious, awakened. They know what's really going on, just like with your show.
Yeah.
You're showing the behind the scenes of the news stories. What the mainstream media is not showing people. You're actually just saying it, like, look at this news story and see it this way.
Yeah.
It opens people's minds to more perspective. So you're doing a great job.
Yeah, and with the books you had come out, it took you a lot of years to form the courage and the words and the inner strength to come out with your stories, but you are, and you're adding to the conversation. And it's a beautiful thing. It didn't take me quite as long because I'm a little younger than you, but I had the same experience of like, oh my God, is this reality? And then you go through the difficult stages and then you get to a point where it's like, I think I'm ready. I'm ready to start sharing that with the world. And you and I, it's beautiful to see the courage that we're sparking in other people to do it. And it's only going to have more people come out with their experiences and their information and have the courage to share what they've encountered. And it's just going to be a big snowball that's continuously getting bigger.
It's happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, cool, man. Thank you so much for coming on, my friend. That was an absolutely enlightening conversation. I hope, anybody out there watching takes a lot of understanding from this and puts it into practice.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me. And, I just love sharing my story, so I'll keep it going.
Yeah. And where can people go really quick to find more of your stories? I mean, you have the giant book behind your head, Forbidden Knowledge. Then you have the Yosef Codes and Egyptian Postures of Power. Where can people go to find these books and find more of what you write?
You could add me on Twitter. Just look up Jason Quitt. You could find me on Facebook under Jason Quitt or The Crystal Sun. And my website with everything on it is thecrystalsun.com. And you could also find my books on Amazon.
Perfect. Cool. So Anybody out there watching, I'm going to link all those things just right in the description below the video, make it easy for you. And again, thank you, Jason, for coming on. That was amazing, my friend.
Thank you, Jordan.
Take care, guys.
Bye.